welcome to the Dawes Travel Talks. This is our webinar where we discuss all things business travel. This is my colleague Charlotte Tulley.
I'm a corporate sales manager here at Dawes, and I'm joined by my colleague Victoria Treble, who's our internal training manager.
In this episode of Travel Talks, we'll be covering all things traveller wellbeing and why it's so important to get this right when travelling for business.
If you've got any questions, please do pop them in the chat and we'll do our best to get back to you over the next 20 minutes of today's session. So Vic, what is traveller wellbeing?
Travel wellbeing refers to physical, mental and emotional health for all individuals, especially when they're travelling for work. It's the same as your wellbeing in a day-to-day life. But why is it important when you're travelling, Charlotte?
It's really important for a number of things when it comes to the traveller and the corporate. Of course, you know, what every company wants, what every traveller wants is to have a great experience whilst they're travelling. And it's important for physical well-being and mental health, but ultimately we want the traveller to be happy, and that does create better business outcomes.
Absolutely. So what are some of the key things to consider to promote well-being when we're travelling for business, do you think?
So it's all about sort of that pre-trip planning, so being informed before you actually take the trip, so you're confident when you do travel. It's about your well-being mentally and physically whilst you're away, so taking care of that, and we'll talk about the things you can do to take those steps. And then it's also about that post-trip care as well, so making sure that when you're back from the trip, you're taking care of well-being so that in the long run you're healthy and happy.
So it's more involved than I originally thought.
Yeah.
So what can corporates do to make the traveller experience better?
Yeah, so there's quite a few things that the corporate can do to promote wellbeing for travellers. One of the biggest things, one of the key things is travel policy. So making sure that you have a fair and flexible travel policy. And there's a number of things the TMC can do to help with that as well. So for example, Dawes can help with benchmarking travel policies to make sure they are fair and they're in line with industry standards. So, you know, we can look at the length of the trip people are taking, the class of travel, whether that's in line to promote good well-being. Obviously, you know, if you're taking a trip to Australia, if you're looking at, you know, a premium economy flight versus a business class flight, there are different considerations. So, you know, for example, if you're taking a premium economy flight, you might need that extra time post-care trip in terms of recovery. You might not be able to sleep as much as you would do in business class with a lay-down bed. So it's just a couple of things to consider there. When it comes to policy, looking at the days away, how many days away people are travelling for business, we can report on that. So giving those insights to businesses, how many red-eye flights people are taking. You know, travelling overnight does have more of an impact on sleep and well-being. So having insights and providing that is really important. Also allowing a buffer is really important. So jet lag's something to consider. You know, if you're going especially a long-haul destination, you might have jet lag. So allowing that time to recover and recuperate so you're ready for your business meeting or whatever it is that you might be travelling for. But also giving the traveller time to be familiar with their surroundings is really important, especially, you know, for stress levels, just to acclimatise and be aware of what's around you, so that you're comfortable and ready to go.
Excellent. There's a lot to consider, and it's all hit. I suppose as a TMC works, it's financial implications along with the well-being, isn't it? Is it financially better to travel in a different class or to have an additional night's accommodation?
Yeah.
Something I hadn't thought of before.
I think it's all about the balance. Obviously, you know, making sure that the traveller is at the forefront of your mind, their comfort, their productivity, and ultimately the business outcomes. You know, weighing up the cost as well. If you know, you could be looking at better outcomes, also more happy employees in the long term, with a little bit of extra cost potentially. You know, travelling the night before.
Yeah, but if a happier employee makes a good deal,
it weighs out. Yeah,
absolutely.
For sure.
It's all very relative, isn't it?
Yeah.
So if we move on to when the traveller is travelling, so where we spoke about well-being earlier, good well-being is a balance of good sleep patterns, good having some exercise and good nutrition. When you're travelling, this could be the last of everything you think about. So when you do travel, sleep pattern is so important. It's so hard when you're traveling over time zones.
Yeah.
And like you say, with the flights when they're going overnight, etc. But there's different things that you can try and do. So before you travel, if you know your own sleep patterns, you know if you're a light sleeper, a heavy sleeper, how it works, come prepared. Come prepared with there's some brilliant apps that you can have out there to help you sleep. If you do a sleep diary, I don't know if you've ever heard of that, where if you keep woken up in the evening as you're trying to sleep, you keep having thoughts going round and round and round your head, pop it down, write it down. It could transfer the thought from your head to the paper and you get back to sleep. Whatever you would normally do, try and continue when you travel. And this comes to nutrition as well. The joy of expensive restaurants or rich foods soon wear thin when you're traveling and you just crave a cheese and pickle sandwich or a salad. And you can get this when you're traveling as well, depending on your job role. I do appreciate if you're meeting and greeting, etc. But bear in mind to try and keep it as balanced as possible, because that will again help you through your day. It will help you with any additional exercise that you try to do. And we can help with that. Your business can help with that. We can all ensure there's a gym, there's a swimming pool, whatever it is you need to make your life on a better balance when you're traveling. It can be planned in advance to make your life when you're there that little bit more seamless and keep you mentally and physically balanced.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's really interesting you say that, Vic, because there was a recent survey and actually sleep was the number one thing that employees said was impacted by their business trip. 38%, in fact, people said that sleep was impacted. Just a couple more things I can think of that the traveller can do. Requesting a hotel room on a higher floor. So away from the lobby, away from the lifts, potentially less noise. But also from the TMC, what we can do is suggest hotels that are in less noisy areas. So rather than being sort of smack bang in the city centre, obviously we'd consider where your meeting is and where you need to be to put you in the right place, but just making sure that it's a safe and quiet area. I think especially for solo female travellers as well, sort of on the safe, moving on to the safety aspect things of side of things, but that's so important.
Just sitting on the safety aspect there, and like you say, especially with solo travellers, but of either gender really, is I feel personally that we have to stop being quite so polite when we travel sometimes. And in as much as if you're in a busy lobby, you're checking in, you've got your laptop bag, you've got a normal suitcase, and the receptionist says, "Oh, thank you so much, Miss Treble. You're in room 124. It's the third floor up there." Everyone in that lobby's heard. I'm going up to the floor. Anybody's going to the floor. You pop your laptop in, you go down for a drink or you go down for your meal. You don't feel very secure because everyone's seen you with a laptop and now you're not with a laptop. If that happens, you're well within your right to say, "Oh, I'm sorry. Can you please give me a different room and write it down on the keypad?" There's nothing rude with being firm and being safe.
Yeah.
And I'll throw that in there for you.
Definitely, so important. And I think that sort of loops well into profiles, traveller profiles, and why that's so important. Is so that we have that type of information. If it's someone's first business trip, we know about it. We can give that extra hand holding. We can give that extra phone call to ensure that the traveller has all of the information they need. They know where they're going. They're aware of any risks. They're aware of any cultural differences, so that their mind's at ease and they're not stressed for when they're travelling.
Try and keep a low
so important.
Anxiety.
Yeah. So Vic, I know before when we were talking, you said a lot about communication and how that's so important, but also how it can differ depending on what type of person you're speaking with within the business.
Definitely. For example, if you were dealing with a Generation Z or Z, if you're in England, the way that they wish to be communicated is very different to how I, for example, hit my mic. It's very different to how I would like to be communicated with. So I prefer a phone call and, "Are you okay, Vic? Everything good?" Absolutely. The Generation Z would just want to have a WhatsApp and they want to have a Google's map to show them where the restaurants are. They've probably already done it themselves, maybe. It's a generalisation, but it is really just to affirm when we are communicating, be aware of who we're communicating with and how they like to be communicated with.
Yeah.
It's a question you can ask.
And that sort of just does loop back to profiles in a way, because that's something you can put within your profile is, preferences of all kinds really. And that's going to help with getting a smooth trip and sort of being happy when you're traveling. And just one thing that is a good example is, what seems so simple, but what seat do you like on a plane? That's going to impact how your trip goes. So, do you like to sit in a certain seat for comfort? Is it because that's the one you're used to traveling in, that's the one you like? Or is it because, when you're doing a certain flight, the sun comes in the window, a certain side of the aircraft, and you need to be working, so therefore you need to be on a different side? That's going to impact your well-being, your comfort, and your stress levels essentially on a trip. So I think having that information in the profile and making sure that corporates are encouraging travellers to complete their profiles, make the TMC aware, so that we as a TMC can provide the best level of service that we can.
Absolutely. You hit on anxiety there, and the other thing to come prepared. If your anxiety can rear its ugly head at any time, especially when traveling, and especially if you're a new business traveler as well. Everybody, different things work for different people. Come prepared with some apps which help you with your breathing. Have some fail safes that you have just to ground you, if that helps you. Meditation. Find out if there's yoga sessions that you can attend, or within the hotel, exercise wise. That's a great way of calming down anxiety and making the endorphins come back into the good rather than the bad. So it's being prepared, like you said, before you travel, to make your travel journey so much better.
Yeah, and I think that's one really good tip that I've got for corporates, is creating a wellness guide. So having that information to hand about post-trip, when you're on trip, the toolkit, like you said, having those apps on your phone, knowing who to contact should you need assistance, and having that all in one place is a really great idea. You could either house that on a company intranet, or you could house it on a TMC portal. So it just gives people somewhere to go should they need that information before they travel and while they're traveling as well.
Oh, this is great. We're getting quite a few questions through. This is quite a good one, Charlotte, for you.
Yep.
I travel a lot for work, and often the impact is not just on me, but also my family, because I'm away from home. What do you think corporates could do to consider this?
Yeah, so obviously, we do understand, and lots of corporates will understand, that when you're traveling for business, it does sometimes eat into personal time, and sometimes even on weekends. One thing I think corporates can do as a suggestion is look at giving time back to employees. So if they are, for example, traveling on a Saturday, giving that day back so that they can spend time with their family, perhaps another day during the week, moving forward. And that would really help the employee feel heard and feel understood, and also feel valued. And as well, their family would really appreciate that. So that's something they could look at doing. And I think considering as well, it's not always a whole day, is it? Sometimes a couple of hours in an evening. So I think just being flexible with your employees as well. So giving them a few extra hours the next morning, if they've been traveling late the evening before, to come into work. So just being more flexible and considerate, I think, for the employer and their travel and their family.
And are you noticing happening more with your corporates?
Yes, definitely. I think as quite a while post COVID now, but I think that has changed things a lot. Post COVID, what we're seeing companies attending to do is stack up their trips. So while they're, if they're traveling to Asia, for example, why not add on 1 or 2 additional business meetings and make it a multi-sector trip? So this means being away for longer periods of time. So we are finding it to be, more of a trend that people are going away for longer periods of time. And what we're doing to support that is looking at the type of accommodation that they're staying in to make it more comfortable for a longer stay. So yeah, more of that sort of long stay apartment style, maybe with kitchen facilities and making sure they've got laundry facilities and things like that. So that's definitely something to bear in mind.
And I guess the flexibility again comes down, and when we spoke about communication and the different type of travellers, I'm assuming the flexibility with maybe the Gen Z again would prefer to add on and have a little bit of me time at the end. Is that something that you're noticing?
100%. We're seeing more of a trend with the bleisure trips.
I like that. Leisure.
Blending the business and leisure. So yeah, looking at, booking a business trip from, a Thursday, Friday, and then perhaps staying over on the weekends and getting that sort of leisure time in as well. So yeah, we're definitely seeing that as a trend.
I think we are running out of time. Should we focus on what we can do when our travellers return?
Yeah, that is something that I think people overlook quite a lot, is that post-trip care. So when you're coming back from a business trip, obviously if you're taking a longer flight, you're probably going to have jet lag. So just taking the time to recover and recuperate from that's really important, so that your well-being following on from the trip isn't impacted as much. Also, when you're coming back from a trip, don't stack your calendar with back-to-back meetings. People kind of think, oh yeah, it'll be fine when I come back, and go straight back into it. But actually you do need that time, not just to adjust, but do that, you might have follow-up to do from your business trip. So just allowing yourself enough time to do that, so you're not feeling stress and at capacity when you're back from a business trip. So just bearing in mind those things, adjusting when you're coming back, allowing enough time.
And I guess that works twofold, doesn't it, for your own mental health and well-being, but also for the business. If you spent a lot of time travelling and achieving something and get back and then don't follow it up in a timely manner.
Exactly.
So it works.
And we know what the world's like these days with Teams. People do put those back-to-back meetings in all day. So I think time blocking is really important as well. And people will understand for well-being, for your well-being, you do need that time to recover when you're back. So just blocking some time in your diary post-trip is a really good idea. So Vic, we are running out of time today, unfortunately. It's been a great session, but before we go, I think it'd be great just to recap some of our top tips for well-being before, during and after travelling. So yeah, before you travel, definitely be informed. So with the help of your TMC, making sure you've got all the information to hand, you've got your itinerary, you've got any sort of risk that's involved, you know where you're going, and you've got the emergency contacts for anyone you should need to contact whilst you're travelling. And then also just choosing sensible times for travelling. So looking at those flight times, we obviously know sometimes you are sort of directed by the time your meeting is or whatever it may be, but just as we said before, if your company's flexible, travel the night before so that you can be well rested and ready to go for your business trip.
Have a buffer. That we spoke about. Have a buffer each side of your travel, so before, during and after. When you land, don't expect to land, run, get in a taxi, do your meeting if you've just been on a 15-hour flight, if you can help it. Have access to all the tools that you need on the go. We're an on-the-go nation now. We need everything in our hand. But to download the apps, get everything you need for your own mental well-being as well as for your business and your meetings, and try and plan your post-trip activity before you travel. So before you leave, before you've even left to go on to your destination, know what you're going to do when you get back and how you're going to readjust back into the workplace and back into a sensible sleep pattern, especially. Yeah, brilliant. Hope we haven't scared you and that you have a great trip.
The time has beat us for today's session. Thank you all for attending. If we didn't get to any of your questions in the chat, one of our Travel Talks team will be in touch directly to answer your questions.
Absolutely. We will be sending out our famous fact sheets to everybody, which will cover everything that we've discussed today. To watch this session back or any of our previous Travel Talks, please go to the website of gdg.travel/talks.
And if you want any more information on Traveller Wellbeing, just hop onto our website, use the search function and search Wellbeing, and everything will pop up. Also, keep an eye out for any future Travel Talks content. We have loads of stuff coming this year, and that will be sent to you directly in due course.
With that said, we wish you safe travels and thank you for watching.
See you soon.